Without further ado, I'd like to get started with our very first speaker. So we have Laura Richards coming up to the stage. She's the founding director of Idea Junkies. She's based in Newcastle and specializes in full stack marketing and communications and PR, which is really exciting because a lot of creators and founders know that probably the first time you're building your idea, you're focusing on the product, the features, the actual maybe the small tweaks and the building elements. But actually, she's somebody who understands very much more so that it's just as important to get your idea in front of the people that really matter. She has a number of accolades, including she's launched the first patient VC fund in the UK. She's helped national supermarkets go green, and she's even built an AI dream interpreter app herself. So again, a fantastic person to come up on the stage and speak with us today. So please welcome Laura Richards.
Hi, thanks. Great to be here. Right, fingers crossed this works. Everyone can see that okay?
Looks fantastic, Laura. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm really excited. I can kind of nerd out about no code and AI and building stuff and marketing all day long. So it's really really cool to be here. As Ash said, so my day job, I run a marketing and PR agency here in the Northeast. I've done a bunch of stuff in my career. As Ash said, I've helped the national supermarket go green. I've run events that have actually increased the value of the UK pound. That was an actual thing that happened. I've launched funds that have supported charities to test out technology like AI and VR. This was back before OpenAI made it so easy to build with AI. I've worked with the government on their data strategy to make sure that startups had their say. I helped launch the UK's first patient capital VC fund. And that's all the stuff in my day job has been around marketing and PR for for technology companies in the tech sector. And I was always super frustrated because I could see all these people, often with a professional developer background, computer science degrees, building really cool things. And I always had this sense of I wish I could do that. And it wasn't until I stumbled across no code. So one of the organizations I worked for started using Airtable. And all of a sudden I was like, these things that I am doing day in, day out, I can start to automate, right? I can start to make my life a little bit easier by maybe getting some of these platforms to do some of it for me. And that was kind of where my no code journey started. So this is going back sort of 2017, 2018. Dabbled, definitely sort of just someone with an interest, a bit of an amateur at this point. Played around with Airtable, played around with some automations, played around with getting forms to send stuff to different places. But it wasn't until the pandemic and joining OnDeck's No Code Fellowship in 2020 that really I kind of realized the power of no code and really began to understand that actually there were a ton of tools out there that even someone like me, even someone that didn't know how to be a developer, could use to start bringing some of my ideas to life. Maybe that resonates with some of you. Maybe you've got these things that you've been wanting to build. Maybe you've been thinking about them for a few years, and actually now you want to know which tools to use. How do you actually make those a reality? And then last year, so I was on maternity leave for most of last year, and my mat leave started around the time that the AI hype really kicked up a notch. So I was not working. I was not really sort of already starting to worry about falling behind because I was taking some time off, and suddenly my Twitter feed, my X feed, was filled with people that were suddenly doing these really awesome things using OpenAI, building AI wrappers and things like that. And actually, what I found was I had a lot of time sat up at night feeding. I've got twin boys, so feeding two babies. That means a lot of hours feeding in the early months. And I kind of just got involved in some of the conversations, and that was where my sort of real introduction to AI, my more practical introduction to AI came about. And actually, that was when I decided I was going to try and build something myself. I asked ChatGPT what I should build. I was literally like, what app can I build using AI and no code? One of its ideas was a dream interpreter. So I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. And I did. I used a platform called Glide, which I will talk about a little bit today, to build that. And actually now I build. I have 4 or 5 apps that I have built for me and my clients. So apps that solve marketing problems, apps that solve challenges that you have when you're managing multiple client accounts. And I build a lot with Glide because it's great for sort of more B2B type, B2B style software, B2B style apps. And I do that alongside my job. So if there's something that is bugging me, if there's a problem that we keep running up against, now I feel really empowered to go ahead and try and solve it myself. So I wanted to start today really just kind of covering off or trying to answer the question, what can you do with no code and AI when you combine the two? And the short answer is actually you can kind of do anything you want, right? The limitations are next to non-existent. As I said, every day there's new tools. We're like hearing like there are greater capabilities, there are new things being brought out. And we really are only at the start of what's going to be possible for anyone. So I'm just going to run through a few examples that I am aware of, stories that I really like. Some you might have heard of. There's a couple that I don't think you will. They're companies that I am working with. They are some of my clients that have started out building with no code. They've gone on to raise investment. So I just wanted to share a few stories to give a sense of what's possible. So the first example of one of the things you can do building with no code and AI is it's the team that built FounderPal. If you're familiar with sort of indie hacker Twitter, you might have come across Dan and Sveta. But they've built a suite of tools to help startups and to help other makers with their marketing. So you can get marketing strategies generated for you, customer personas created for you, all using AI. And all of their tools have been built as so they are AI wrappers built with Bubble. But you can see here just how financially successful FounderPal is doing. So yes, maybe not straight away, but they've only been going. FounderPal's only been around about a year, and they've generated $120,000 in revenue. So if you're sitting there thinking, I want to be part of this AI wave, I really want to make some money, I've got some ideas and I think it could work. Yes, right. The short answer is yes, you can make money building using no code tools and AI. And like some of their tools are free to use, so it's worth going to check out founderpal.ai if you want. Dan's got a really cool, very short AI building an AI wrapper course as well, which I've used to kind of get a bit better with Bubble. This is an older story, but one I really like because it's a great story of a company that was built and exited all using no code tools. So this was back before sort of the AI layer was added. But Alex Friedman built a platform called Founder Gigs after struggling herself to find a fractional role as she was building another startup. So she wanted a job that she could take on whilst also building a startup. Like most good indie makers, she went to Twitter, asked if other people had this problem, turned out that they did. So she built Founder Gigs using Airtable and Softer. She launched it for free for the first couple of months, got a ton of people using it, then decided to monetize it. She made $5,000 in the first month and very quickly realized that there was definitely something in what she built, but it wasn't the thing she wanted to spend the next 5 years building and scaling. So she approached Arlen Hamilton, who is the founder of Backstage Capital. Backstage Capital is a VC firm that supports underrepresented founders. They'd also built a very similar platform at that point called HireRunner. And through their conversations, Alex was able to secure a 6-figure exit for Founder Gigs to Backstage Capital, to HireRunner. And again, this was built simply using no-code tools. And then a couple of stories. These are more recent. These are companies that I am working with at the moment, both based in Newcastle in the northeast of England. So Polybox is a marketing analytics platform, so AI and automated reporting for marketing agencies. And it was started by 2 grads who were working for a marketing agency, and they were tasked with creating the same reports again and again and again. Their MVP was built using Looker Studio. So they were building custom Looker Studio reports for other marketing agencies. But they were able to generate enough interest, enough revenue that they then went on to raise £500,000 pre-seed VC off the back of their no-code platform. So before they'd even built anything bespoke, before they wrote a single line of code, they managed to secure £500,000 in investment, and that was built off a no-code solution. Very similarly, SQCDP, got to get those letters the right way around, was started by a founder, Stephen Mitchell. Mitch, his career, he spent 30 years working for manufacturing firms. He knew the health and safety issues that these firms had inside out. He had this really deep sector knowledge, really deep level of insight into his audience, into the people that he was trying to help. And he built his MVP. He started building guide apps for manufacturers, for manufacturing plants and other firms in the manufacturing industry. And off the back of the success of this, he was able to raise £200,000 in pre-seed funding to now go ahead and actually build a custom software solution. So they're building they're now developing their own platform. But again, using a very popular tool, a very popular no-code tool, they didn't write any code until after they'd raised their investment. So again, if you're sitting there thinking, I really want to build something, you know that you want to go the VC route rather than the indie developer route, you can still do that. You can still get started building with no-code tools. So to recap, what can you do with no-code and AI? First thing you can do is you can scratch your own itch. You can solve problems that you're facing. You can solve problems that your customers or your client or your community are facing. You can be profitable with no code and AI. You can actually have an exit. So if you want to build something, but you don't think you want to run it forever, that's possible too. And you can raise VC investment off the back of a no code MVP. So 5 steps to get started. You sat there, you've got a great idea. You want to build something. What should you do to get started? So the first thing I would say you should do is build what you know. And this is what I do. This is where my most used apps, the things that are working the best, the things that I'm most proud of, have all come from the problems me and my clients are facing. So start with the problem that you know inside out. It makes it way easier for you to figure out what works, for you to know where to start, and for you to figure out that when you're actually onto something. My second step would be to do your research. Not all no-code tools do the same job. And this is something that, especially in the first couple of years that I was playing around with no-code, this is something that I got wrong like 3 or 4 times. And it was like, I look back and I feel really silly for it. But so hopefully I can prevent you going through the same issue. But you need to figure out what it is that you want to build. What's the basic functionality of the software, the SaaS, the tool, the app that you want to build? And then try and pick the right tool for the job. Some tools do one thing really well. Some tools stack together more easily than others. And then you've got tools that actually allow you to build just about anything. But you kind of need to figure out, are you looking to build something that is mainly customer facing? Are you building something that all your customers will need to be able to onboard their own data? What's the level of complexity and what's the level of functionality you're going to need? Third step, prepare to learn. Any tool, like even super simple ones like Card or Softer, take a little bit of time to figure out. You're still going to have to go and figure out like how to use them. The more complex tools, things like Bubble, things like Xano, they have a steeper learning curve, right? Like if you want to get really good with some of these tools, you are going to have to put in a bit of time. You might have to dedicate some time. There might be a course or two you want to take. I'm sure there'll be resources shared by James and the team here about how you can get started. Kieran, some of Kieran's courses I've taken, I've done his online courses. Amazing ways to learn, amazing ways to speed up that learning curve, but you do have to put in a bit of effort up front. Step number 4 would be to find your community. If you're sat at a computer all day on your own, it can be really lonely. But the no-code community is like, it's really, really open, welcome, friendly, helpful. Like it's really awesome. Most of the big no-code tools also have their own online communities. So there'll be forums, there'll be makers making and creating resources for how to help other people to build with them. Get involved in the forums, find a Discord server of people building, get involved with Create With, right? There are loads of communities that will help you speed up your learning journey, and also help you stay motivated when things get tough. And the final step would be to test quickly. The beauty of building with no code and AI is that you can get stuff turned around really quickly. You don't have to spend 3 or 6 or 12 months building something in secret, in stealth mode before you get it into people's hands. But the quicker you can get something into your users' hands, the quicker you're going to figure out, have you reached product market fit? Have you actually figured out the right solution to the problem that you're trying to solve? It helps you build a better product, but it'll also help with your marketing, which obviously I care about. If you get something into people's hands, you'll start figuring out, what do they like about it? What are they saying? What language are they using? What are those kind of ideal customers? Your first 10 customers are going to help you figure out how to reach your next 100, right? So get it into people's hands, start testing, build in public. Don't spend 12 months figuring out how to build dark mode when it turns out your customers don't even care, right? Just get it out into people's hands as quickly as you can. And that's it for me. I've actually managed to stick to time, which is a bit of a miracle. If you want to connect, so I still do use X, but mainly active on LinkedIn these days. My LinkedIn profile is the one in pink on the left. And I have an event. I'm going to do a sneaky plug for something. I've got a workshop coming up on the 9th of October, if you want to learn how to leverage AI and automations in small business as a startup. I've got a workshop that I'll be delivering online that I'd love for you to join. And that's the QR code on the right there in orange. And that's it from me. Thank you very much. And yeah, hopefully there's a few questions.
Yeah, just absolutely incredible. Thank you so much, Laura. That like every almost slide was like a perfect screenshot and like a reference point. So those 5 steps are like not only one of the things with trying to discover what tool to build. That's one thing, but the elements of the community and like validating your own problems is incredibly like powerful as somebody creating their idea. So yeah, we've got time for 1 or 2 questions. We did have again, if anyone wants to add them, feel free to put them in the chat. I think we did have one just around AI wrappers from Fred. So yeah, Kieran gave a great high level overview there as well. Do you want to maybe just add like any of your own experience of building AI wrappers, or where you kind of see the market potential of building an AI wrapper as a business?
Yeah, of course. So, yeah, so I've built a few. Like an AI wrapper is basically using someone else's AI, like typically large language model, right? And you're building a way for people to interact with that, and you're setting some parameters so that it does a specific task. It's great because essentially you're pre-programming that AI so that people aren't having to go to ChatGPT and write out complex prompts themselves. It allows you to do some of that work for people. I think that they work great in a number of ways. So they're great for these kind of micro tools, very specific tools that that solve a very specific problem for people. They're great as a marketing tool as well, right? If you've got something that, if you're trying to build out your mailing list, for example, as a startup or as a creator, and you can create a tool that people can use for free in return for their email, that's a great way to kind of capture people's emails and get people involved, like to bring people into your community. I think there's probably realistically, there's probably a finite amount of time that people are going to make big money on AI wrappers, because there are so many, and so many of the big players are kind of like big tools are going to be building these in. They're going to become just features of bigger tools in the long term. But right now, there's definitely an opportunity to make money by like programming and creating stuff that does a particular task. It's a couple of months ago, but Deloitte had a report out a couple of months that said, actually, so everyone here has probably played around with AI, right? We're the people using it day to day. But it's something like only 2% of adults in the UK have actually used AI. So we're still at the start of this new wave of technology and sort of technology being integrated in new ways into our work, into our life. So there's definitely this opportunity right now. So I'd say it's a great way to get started. I've built AI wrappers with Glide. I love Glide because, like I say, I use it with clients. It works great from an agency client perspective. I wouldn't say Glide is the tool to use if you're building something that's more consumer focused. Then you want to be looking at something like Bubble. But you can get these things up and running within a few days, even if you haven't done anything before. They're not that difficult. The technical bit, a lot of people have built out those plugins and stuff for us anyway. So yeah, the technical bit's not shouldn't be too big a barrier.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much for that overview. We did have another question in chat that probably followed you. You mentioned again, Glide's a great tool to start with. Yeah, Hisham asked around like, will there be a list of no-code AI tools? I think we could probably spend the rest of the hour going through all the entirety of that list. So yeah, that's definitely something we can provide afterwards, and also include any of your favorite resources as well, Laura, after this presentation. But yeah, thank you again so much for that incredibly concise overview of what no-code tools are capable of, where the opportunities are in AI, and then like especially those really actionable tips to get started. So yeah, really appreciate that.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Okay, cheers. All right, so moving right along here, what we're going to do is introduce our next guest. So I'll just do the overview slide here. So our next speaker here is James Davenport. He is the founder of UserLoop. He's based in Brighton. He's a Bubble ambassador. And again, we'll go into a little bit about Bubble as a no-code tool and how it's so popular. He's been a speaker at the No-Code Summit, Bubble Conference, a podcast host. So not only is he somebody who builds proficiently with Bubble and no-code and AI tools, but he also shares his lessons learned, build in public posts, and is again a great person to follow as well online too. So without further ado, I'd like to pass off to James Davenport.
Thank you, Ash, and yeah, thanks, Laura, for that first tour. That was awesome. So yeah, I'm excited to talk a little bit about my experience of building with Bubble today, and kind of tell you how I got started with it, and now it's become my full-time job running this software business that's built with Bubble. So I kind of wanted to show you, how you can go from getting started with it to eventually, if you want to, making it your full-time gig, which is, was my dream for a lot of years before I got into this. So I guess a little bit of background. I was a product manager for many years. So that's like essentially mostly a non-technical person who works with software teams to build software. And I'd always really wanted to become a programmer, but I just couldn't get my head around how to, write code. My head wasn't wired that way that I could ever really get into it. But so I had all these app ideas that I wanted to make, but I could never actually make them. In one startup, I did raise a load of VC money and then paid developers to build the idea. And then you kind of realize how quickly that money disappears when you're spending it on full-time developers to build something for you. So I was really, really excited when I saw Bubble come along. And I started using it in 2017, and we'd had years and years of, no code app builders kind of over promising what they could actually do. But I think with Bubble, we had, really the first one where you could build a very complex software product without being a programmer. And, since 2017, obviously the market's really matured. Bubble itself has matured into this fantastic platform. But when I got started with it in 2017, I was literally just building kind of fun apps for myself with it. I probably built, 20, 30 apps just to learn it, because there is a learning curve with it. And I probably did give up a few times when I first started with it, but I'm really glad that I stuck with it. So if you do give it a go, I know it is a little bit intimidating at first, but if you stick with it, you can really do some really incredible stuff and build some amazing things. So what I wanted to show you to start off with was my app, just to give you an idea of what it's possible to build with it. And then we're going to look at some of the other top Bubble apps that are built. And I was going to show you a little bit of what the Bubble editor looks like, so you can see how these apps are actually put together. But we won't go too technical, because obviously there's a lot more that you can dive into after this for those kind of tutorials. So just a quick intro to the app. So the app's called UserLoop. It's an app that lets Shopify store owners survey their customers. So if you buy something on Shopify, it would survey you at the checkout and then send you emails afterwards, and then analyze all those responses. So it uses AI, OpenAI and Anthropic to do that. So it is kind of an AI wrapper as well. So you'll kind of see a little bit of what that's about. So I'm going to quickly share my screen now and just dive into a quick walkthrough of a few bits. Cool. Hopefully you can see that all okay. So first of all, everything I'm going to show you is in Bubble. So the marketing site here, which is the homepage, this is all in Bubble. The actual app itself is in Bubble, everything that you'll see. So I think Bubble and no-code tools sometimes can have a bit of a reputation for not looking good, or, not being that user-friendly, but it is possible, especially if you use an out-of-the-box UI kit. So I'm going to kind of show you a little bit about that as well and how UI kits work. But essentially, when you go into the actual product itself, you can see all the customers who've responded to your surveys. You can create new surveys of different types, whether they're kind of by email or, how the survey is going to get triggered. So, it is actually quite a complex product. But when I first, further to what Laura was saying, when I first built the first version of this, I just started it as a side project over Christmas, and it was insanely simple. All it did was let you have one question and one survey, and didn't do anything else really. And it's over the years that I've kind of added all these features to it based on what users have been saying. So yeah, it definitely was very, very basic when it started. And then in the analytics, you've kind of got, you can see how many customers responded to each thing. You can use OpenAI to analyze customer responses. So this is here doing an API call to OpenAI to go and read all the customer responses and then bucket them up. But similar to what we were saying, it's about making a nice UI on top of that OpenAI API call. So it's putting it into a nice chart and all this kind of stuff. So it's all totally possible to do. And of course, there's tons of API integrations and all that in there as well. To give you a quick idea of what Bubble looks like behind the scenes, I'm going to jump into the Bubble editor here. And in here, you'll see this is that homepage we were just looking at. So you kind of got this responsive UI builder that you can put elements together with. It's very similar to something like Webflow now. It uses Flexbox, and it's all pretty easy. And like I mentioned before, if you use a UI kit, that has ready-made components that you can just drop onto your page. So you don't need to be a designer or anything like that. And in fact, Bubble itself even has a bunch of built-in components in it now. So you can see you've got things like menus, headers, marketing pages, and you could literally just drag that and drop it on a page if you want to get started. Like it is that simple. You don't have to go like completely over the top with the design, when you're getting started, because there is a lot to learn. You've got a list of all your pages here. So this is a list of all the pages in the application. And then Bubble also has this thing called reusable elements. So these are basically chunks of a page that you can then reuse over and over again. You can put them on multiple pages, but you've only got to update them once. So a good example is my marketing header here. So this header, I build this element once, and then I can just chuck it on every marketing page, and it will render there for everyone. You only got to update it in one place. So that's really, really handy. The other thing that is really powerful in Bubble is this concept of back-end workflows. So just at a very high level, what these basically are workflows that run on the Bubble server that manipulate data. It's basically like when the user presses a button on the front end, you can have this thing on the back end go through and send the user an email, reset their password, all this kind of stuff, and you can have all of that in these back end workflows. And to be honest, I think this is the most powerful feature of Bubble. It takes a bit of time to get your head around, and there's tons of great tutorials on YouTube about this. But the UI builder in Bubble is, it's cool, but let's face it, there's tons of UI builders out there, Webflow, et cetera, et cetera. I think where Bubble is so powerful is this ability to manipulate data, use external APIs, plugins, all that kind of thing. So just looking at plugins, if you've ever used WordPress before, it's kind of a similar concept. I think the plugins here are much better integrated than with something like WordPress. They're very deeply integrated into the platform, but there's basically an entire app store of plugins that will do pretty much anything you could imagine. There's such a huge variety of stuff in here for doing things like if you want to add a sign in with Google button or a post to LinkedIn button or whatever, there are plugins that will do that and tutorials that will help you do it. And then there's also this thing called the API connector. I won't go into it too much, but basically what that lets you do is connect Bubble to any API. So you've probably heard the word API before. Basically, that's the way of talking to other internet services over kind of computer language, I guess. So, for example, if you wanted to create some text with ChatGPT, I have that set up in here as OpenAI, and it's a very, very simple API call to make that request. So you can send your request, and then it will send back the response from ChatGPT. At the beginning, that can be super intimidating. I never had a clue how APIs worked. But if you start off with some really simple tutorials, like maybe fetching the weather from a free API, things like that, there are some really good, simple ways to just start getting your head around how they work. And then literally within an hour or so, you would be able to have a page in Bubble where you could push a button, fetch the weather for the given user and show it on the page. Like that's a very, very doable first step in Bubble. And then obviously if you want to get into AI and all this other stuff, you can kind of do it step by step. But I would really just try and keep it simple at first when you're doing stuff with these APIs, because it can be a lot to kind of take in. The other thing that is worth mentioning, if you're kind of a more advanced kind of developer, I guess, is that you can run custom JavaScript in Bubble. So if you do come up against some kind of limitation or something you can't do in Bubble, you can write custom code for it if you want, if you're a programmer, or you can even use ChatGPT to generate custom JavaScript if there's something very unusual that you want to do. And then you can also do other kind of more complex things, but I probably won't go into that right now. The other thing that's great about Bubble is as it has a fantastic developer community, and there are tons and tons of great developers like Laura out there who can help you build your app. It's very, very vibrant community. I mean, there are thousands around the world. There's obviously this big event happening in New York in 2 weeks where they all meet. But the platform is really on the on and up, and it's very well supported. There's a fantastic forum and community that has been there for 10 years where you can find the answer to pretty much any question, and everyone is super, super friendly. So it's very, very approachable. I guess another, I'll quickly show you some other top Bubble apps, just to give a couple of other examples of some really, really fantastic things that have been built with Bubble. So this one's called SynthFlow. This is literally an entire AI platform that is hooked up with phone APIs. So it will make phone calls with an AI voice and capture the response. And it's beautifully designed. It's an amazing, like really, really advanced product. So definitely worth checking out SynthFlow if you're looking for an example of a Bubble app. Another fantastic one, which I think relates back a bit to what Laura was saying about building around your expertise. This app is called Better Legal, and it's all for basically incorporating a company in the US where it's really complicated. And Chad, who's the founder, has built this amazing app around that, all in Bubble. Again, unbelievably complex piece of software, what it's actually doing with all these incorporations. But again, all built in Bubble, and I think it's a really nice looking app. And then another example is SubSocket, which is built by Timo, and it's a fantastic platform for doing one-time payments with PayPal. So again, some really, really good examples there of just the things you can do. Obviously, you can build a one-page simple app like I did many times to get started. I built quiz apps and just stuff for fun. Like, you don't have to have the perfect idea to get launched, but I think it's useful to know you can build really powerful stuff with it without being a programmer, and that you can aim for that to make that your kind of your full-time gig if that's what you want to do. A couple of other little bits. I'm just going to stop sharing there because that's the majority of that bit. But a couple of other bits that are interesting. If you are interested in trying out Bubble, there's a fantastic deal that's available through Microsoft for startups who've partnered with Bubble, and you can get $3,000 of credits. It's a very simple application form. You can just sign up for Microsoft for startups, and you'll get that credit if you want to give Bubble a go. Or it starts from free to do a test app, and then it starts at $29 a month if you want to actually publish the app, and it kind of goes up from there. The other two dates to have in mind are BubbleCon, which is on the 1st and 2nd of October. It's all going to be streamed on YouTube, and there's some fantastic stuff there, discussions about what's happening with the platform and tutorials and tons of cool stuff. And of course, we'll have Create With as well again next year, the conference where we'll all be. And it'd be great to see some of you there. But yeah, I think that's it, unless there's any questions.
Wonderful. Awesome. Thank you so much, James, for deep diving into a product that you built yourself and showing kind of inner workings and basically all the flows of what, or basically how that runs and is all put together. We had a couple of questions in the chat here. Lucy asked one around, again, from a non-technical perspective. Kieran had an answer here too, but just curious if you have anything to add. How do you ensure data integrity with tools like Bubble, for example, but even just no-code and AI tools in general, and security if customers are integrating, tools like this into their Shopify sites?
Yeah, so there are some quite complex privacy rules in Bubble that do take a bit of time to get your head around how they work exactly, but that manages what data is shown to what people. Bubble is also, I think it's SOC2 compliant, and I think they're working on HIPAA compliance as well. But it's also it's built in with GDPR compliance and all that kind of stuff. Personally, I about a year ago switched to using an external database, which you can also do with Bubble. Which gives more kind of control over where data is stored and permissions and all that kind of stuff, which you can totally do if you want. You don't have to use the Bubble database. You can just pick and choose what bits of it you use. But it does have fairly robust controls built in it. And in fact, we've seen some kind of financial startups using it. And even there is a mobile network in the UK that is built using it, which is quite cool. So yeah, I hope that answers that.
Definitely. And like you're just mentioning, some of these apps and platforms almost have the compliance built in for you. So if you're doing your own custom code solution, bringing that in, you have to maybe consider that more so than a platform that's already got those certifications, for sure.
Yeah, and one of the top platforms that always comes up for very, very rigorous data controls is Xano, which is a no-code backend. I guess it works great with Bubble, but you can store records in there and do probably more complicated data manipulations and security protocols and stuff than you can in Bubble. But to be honest, if you're just getting started, I would encourage you to just use the Bubble database to get off the ground, and then you can always move the database later if you really want to.
Totally. And actually, that's a really good segue into another popular question from Fred here. If the no-code app is successful, does it handle scale of use well? Again, a high number of users without breaking the site. Maybe you have an example of some high traffic no code applications.
Yeah. It's definitely something that these platforms did not used to be that good at, but they have really, really improved over the last 2 or 3 years, I'd say. So yeah, my app obviously kind of, when you have Black Friday, things like that, we're literally dealing with millions of feedbacks coming in, and it isn't a problem. I think, but Bubble have recently changed their pricing around that. So to be honest, the main limitation you may have to keep an eye on is the amount of kind of data processing the app does, because the cost of running the app now scales on that. But like capacity wise, there are many bubble apps that have millions of records and millions of users without a problem. This is also something I know that they're actively always trying to improve, how how they deal with very large apps, because their ambition is to be a developer platform where people can build and scale SaaS without having to use an external database or do other things. So I know that that's something that they're working hard on.
Definitely. And going back to one of the points that Laura made as well too, I think if you're initially just first starting to work on an idea and build it out, that's probably something you want to maybe shelve or put on the back burner in terms of worrying about the scale. And really it's just about validating your idea, talking with customers, even just kind of finding out the platform that you enjoy building as well too. So I think that's one thing we notice in the no code and AI community is not necessarily focusing on the scale, because that's a nice problem to have, but also some of those like really core elements of just solving problems for your customers, like you've done with User Loop.
Definitely, yeah.
Amazing. Probably have time for like one more question here. Again, if folks want to add them to the chat. Yeah, again, yeah, Laura just mentioned that. It's a nice problem to have when you have too many users. And again, another point that Laura mentioned is that just the no code community is just so helpful and friendly and really supportive, so that if you were having a problem of so many users in your app, you'd probably find somebody who's experienced that before and would be happy to kind of help that as well too.
Definitely. And one other thing that just springs to mind that it's worth mentioning actually, is if you are interested in building like a native mobile app, obviously at the moment, I think the main tool that people are using is Flutterflow, but very soon Bubble are releasing their own ability to release native apps to the Apple App Store and Android, that aren't actually wrapped apps. They are full React Native apps that you can build in the Bubble editor, which I think is going to be very exciting. Because then suddenly you can use Bubble to also build a native app, which I'm really excited about. So that's another one to keep an eye on. If you do want to build a mobile app instead of a web app, you can also do that.
Yeah, definitely a great suggestion for adding the native mobile functionality as well too. Okay, just seeing if there's any other outstanding questions. Again, if we didn't get to all the questions in this session, we'll send out an email to everyone who joined today with like the extra links and resources. But again, really appreciate all your questions for both of our speakers today. Again, thank you so much to our amazing speakers, Laura and James, for coming in and chatting today, and Kieran behind the scenes doing the operations and managing the chat for us. And again, thank you for all of you for attending and taking the time to learn more about how to unlock your ideas with AI and no-code tools without necessarily having the coding experience. So really appreciate you all today. Hope you enjoy the rest of the Leeds Digital Festival and wish you the best of the rest of the week.